Okay, I know it's still a long shot because the Broncos still have to lose and the Dolphins still have to lose for the Bengals to get in. But you were joking with me before the show because this is Bills Mafia potential nightmare. Joe Burrow walking into Highmark Stadium next week.
Absolutely, Jay. Again, you should be playing the Dolphins, who you've absolutely owned, or the Broncos, who right now are, I think, 1-6, 1-7 versus teams above 500 and have a rookie quarterback. Imagine a rookie quarterback coming to Highmark for the first round of the playoffs and having to play Josh Allen. But no, now all of a sudden there's a way, and it's two dominoes, that arguably the baddest man in the NFL at this moment, it's between him and Josh Allen, is coming into town. And what's tough about this is you start with Jamar Chase. Okay, the guy is incredible. The duo is incredible. We just saw the catch. It's sick. And if you want to cover him, bracket, you don't have a guy who can cover man-to-man. So if you want to play man and bracket him or some sort of zone, then you got T. Higgins.
Yep.
T. Higgins, now he did get a little tweak today. We'll see how healthy he is, but he's obviously a phenomenal receiver. And if somehow you cover that, Gesicki has really come on as a great third option for them at tight end. So, Jay, I sit here and I say, if Joe Burrow's playing against anybody, including the Buffalo Bills, look out. You're going to have to score a bunch of points. I thought the Steelers made a lot of plays to hold this guy to 19 tonight. I don't think that's going to happen again. Joe Burrow is literally on fire. Again, I would say right now, as far as football goes, it's him and Josh Allen are playing the best football, and Lamar in the NFL. I'm sorry, Bills fans. I really am. But if this happens, you're going to have to potentially run the gauntlet of beating Burrow, beating Lamar, and beating Patrick Mahomes in 3 consecutive weeks. And if you do that and you win the Super Bowl, no one deserves it more than you.
I was just going to say, then you really got to tip your cap to Buffalo if they pull all that off. The Steelers, on the other hand, have now lost 4 straight as they head into the postseason. They're going to face the Ravens or the Texans. The question is, can they get a playoff win either way?
So, Jay, to me, I look at the Steelers team, and there are moments of this game where you think it's going to be a blowout. And I think, really, their playoff hopes, I think their defense will make plays, kind of like they did tonight, but their playoff hopes rely on Russell Wilson. And he's just so streaky. And today he didn't have a lot of help from Pickens. In the end of the game, dropped by Freiermuth, hurt. But beyond that, it's like, where was this man for 3 quarters today? Because he certainly wasn't playing football. It was a lot of checkdowns. It was a lot of, we're running the ball. It seemed like he had no faith in him from a play caller standpoint. And it's just been so wildly hot and cold. Obviously, everybody's inconsistent. You can't always be, slinging the pill around like you're the greatest player ever. But he's had games where you're like, man, I get why, they made the move to Fields, or from Fields, excuse me. And Russ is going to take this team in a deep playoff run. And then you have the first 3 quarters of today's game where you're like, this Steelers team offensively literally stinks. And then all of a sudden something happens, and Russ all of a sudden starts balling. So, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for Steelers fans, because it probably doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy, but your playoff hopes are really dependent on how well Russ plays.
If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you're either facing the LA Chargers or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who would you rather face?
If I'm the Ravens, by far the Chargers. We talked about Buffalo kind of getting potentially a short end of the stick. I would argue the same thing for the Ravens. Historically, the Ravens and Lamar have not been good against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. And what I'll say is with the Steelers, for a team that is not maybe loaded with superstars, they seem to make just a wild amount of big plays. Like today, they come out, they start the game, they give up, I think, 64 yards of passing on the first drive, and you're like, this game's going to be a blowout. Then all of a sudden, it's like, boom, sack, fumble, boom, sack, fumble. Oh, we turn the ball over, we'll find a way to take it back over. Where do these plays come from? It's so crazy that every week they make these wild, miraculous plays. And then all of a sudden, you also seem to get that Steelers bounce. I mean, again, we talked about the Peter call. We talked about earlier in the show. We got to be screaming. That's bad fundamentals by the Bengals there.
Yeah.
But the ball touches a toe, and I thought Hayward, the brother now, the tight end, did a phenomenal job securing that ball on the sideline there. I mean, that was an athletic play. So I sit here and say, as a football fan and as a Ravens guy, like the last team you want to play is the Steelers. They play minus the last time you played. They play each other tough all the time. Like, it's going to be an epic showdown. So, Jay, hopefully, we get a little Josh Allen, Joe, as a neutral football guy, we get Josh Allen, Joe Burrow.
It would be amazing.
Ravens, Steelers? I mean, buckle up.
Yeah, that would be a great first round.
Buckle up.
Great first round. But I also want to talk about the MVP because it's almost like for the last few weeks we've sort of accepted this should be Allen's MVP year. And yet, today, you had Lamar, you had Joe kind of saying, hey, hold on,
Yes.
this isn't over yet.
So, Jay, the MVP conversation for me, it's so hard to, nail down because right now, in my heart, I would say Josh Allen is the guy. But then all of a sudden you look at this right here, and I say to myself, how can you sit here and say this is, Josh Allen's MVP when it comes to numbers?
Yep.
And again, you can say, oh, well, Josh has some rushing yards. Well, so does Lamar Jackson and more.
Yep.
Total touchdowns, obviously, Lamar and Joe Burrow have got him. So I sit there, and then you say, okay, if you want to make the argument about situations, you take Lamar out of this, which I don't love that argument. I didn't like it last year. I think last year set a bad precedent in that sense. But you take Lamar out because he's got Derrick Henry, and he's got a great run-stopping defense. Their pass defense has been so-so. And you say, oh, you take Josh Allen off of the Bills, and what's their record?
Right.
And my response would be, you take Joe Burrow off of the Bengals, it's a 2-win team. I mean,
Exactly.
and then the next, again, it's like what layer of the onion you want to peel. Burrow is playing in a substantially harder division. There's potentially 3 playoff teams, if they get in his division. They have the Ravens, and they have, obviously, the Steelers.
Yep.
You're playing, Josh Allen, on the other hand, is playing against the Jets, who are one of the worst teams in the AFC, the Patriots, who might be the worst team in the AFC, and the Dolphins, who, when they don't have Tua, which has been for about half the year, are also one of the worst teams in the AFC. And it's not Josh Allen's fault. I'm not trying to be a Josh Allen hater. Again, my heart, I'm still giving it to Josh.
Yeah.
But I sit here and say, yeah, it's a little tough to argue with the stats.
It got a little more interesting on Saturday.
It really
for sure.
did.
Speaking of interesting, are you ready for the Sunday Nighter? Because, as you like to say, it's going to be electric.
Jay, nothing could be more exciting for me than this game. I mean, the whole ordeal that you win and you're the 1 seed and you lose and you're on the road for potentially the whole playoffs.
Yeah.
You want it, this is a playoff game.
So massive.
And the
So
matchups,
massive.
I mean, it's across the board, the storylines. I cannot wait for this game.
Yeah. Now, who's winning and why?
Okay, right now, and no shock to Lions fans, I'm leaning Vikings. I'm leaning Vikings, but I'll say this. The big matchup for me is probably not, the prolific stars. The big matchup for me is going to be the Vikings run defense versus the Lions run offense. Right now, the Vikings run defense, number 2 in the league total yards, number 2 in yards per carry. You look at how the Lions want to operate. They want to be in very third manageables, take their shots at Jameson Williams, do a lot of play actions, turn around, Jared Goff, bang, throwing in-cut daggers to Amon-Ra St. Brown, give the ball back, Jameer, he breaks one, and they're the best offense in the NFL. But all of a sudden, you take that run game out, and you saw what kind of happened to Jordan Love last week, getting 3rd and longs. It's a little bit tougher, and Jared Goff is still going to convert those 3rd and longs. But I'm looking at a game that's probably going to be 41-38. So if you can stop one of them and get that punt, now all of a sudden you sit there on the other side, and where I lean Vikings is Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, he's a big man coverage guy. Who's playing Jefferson and man? Nobody. And if you want to bracket him, you go to Addison. Who's playing him in man? Nobody. Not well. Who's playing Hawkinson man? Nobody, not well. So now you say, okay, we can adjust. Let's now run zone. I think Sam Darnold's proven that he can also attack zone pretty well this year. So I really like the matchup. I'd say this, Jay. Last thing, Lions' only chance, they did it last week. Turnovers. Lions get turnovers, they win. They don't get turnovers, they lose. And another matchup potential, if the Rams can lose tomorrow, there could be a situation where the Lions fly to Los Angeles to see their old friend Matthew Stafford.
Oh,
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Now, that would be incredible.
Yes.
I wonder if Sunday night, too, as we show, we're on after that game, by the way. So we want you to join us right after that game, the Sunday nighter between the Lions and the Vikings. Luke's going to break this one down, and I think his head might explode.
I know. Yeah, I can't be more excited.